The intergalactic summit was held on a massive station orbiting the gas giant Netris, a neutral ground where species from across the galaxy convened to discuss universal peace and defense. Humans, under the leadership of Captain Ava Williams, stood in the vast council hall, flanked by representatives from every major alien race. A sea of humanoid faces and alien forms, each adorned in ornate garb, watched them closely, some with skepticism, others with open disdain. Ava felt the weight of their judgment pressing on her as she stood before the council. The speech she had prepared had taken hours to perfect. She had spent weeks researching galactic defense strategies, consulting top engineers, military tacticians, and even the best alien scientists Earth had access to. And yet, she knew the moment she stepped into the chamber, the odds were stacked against them. The chairperson of the council, a towering being from the Qitar race, an ancient and technologically advanced species, addressed her with a voice like grinding stone. His alien eyes, sharp and calculating, sized her up. "Captain Williams of Earth, I'm curious," he began, his tone dripping with condescension. "What brings you and your primitive species to our esteemed summit?" Ava clenched her fists at her sides but kept her voice steady. "We're here to offer our assistance in the growing war against the Riller Dominion. Earth has developed its own defense capabilities. We believe we can construct a warship capable of contributing to the galactic defense effort." A murmur rippled through the chamber, a sound that combined amusement and disbelief. Ava steeled herself. She knew they would laugh, but she wasn't backing down. "Captain, no offense," said a high-ranking representative from the Varnak, a species known for its war machines, but humanity can barely manage basic space exploration. "You expect us to believe you can build a warship to match the power of our fleets?" Ava's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel the eyes of the room on her, many of them already dismissing her claim as absurd. But she wasn't going to let them dismiss humanity like this. Not now. "We don't need to match your fleets," she said, her voice rising with conviction. "We don't need your technology, your firepower, or your vast resources. We need only our ingenuity, our determination, and our will to survive. Humans are the most resourceful species in the galaxy. We don't back down from a challenge." There was a long silence. Some of the alien representatives exchanged looks, their expressions ranging from incredulity to outright pity. "Your species barely has the infrastructure to sustain your own colonies," said the Qitar chairperson, shaking his head. "How do you expect to build something as complex and destructive as a warship? It's simply beyond your capabilities." Ava squared her shoulders, meeting his gaze without flinching. "You think we can't do it? Just wait and see. We'll prove you wrong." A low chuckle came from a nearby seat. It was the representative from the Zoreth, a race known for their advanced biological weapons. He leaned back in his seat, sneering. "Humans building warships. That's a good one. Perhaps you should stick to what you know best, trade and diplomacy. Leave the real fighting to those who can handle it." Ava took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. "The galaxy has underestimated us for centuries, but mark my words, humans will build a warship, and we will defend our home, and yours, if necessary. It won't be like anything you've ever seen." The chairperson dismissed them with a wave of his hand, signaling the end of the meeting. The message was clear. Humanity was not welcome in the conversation about galactic defense. But Ava wasn't deterred. She knew that even if the galaxy doubted them now, Earth had something that none of these so-called superior species had: unpredictable, relentless willpower. As she walked out of the chamber, her mind was already turning. They would show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. And it would start with a single warship, a symbol of defiance, innovation, and most importantly, survival. After the summit's humiliating dismissal, Ava and her team returned to Earth with their heads held high, not in defeat, but with a fierce resolve to prove the galaxy wrong. The ridicule they faced only fueled their determination, and now the real work began. Back on Earth, Ava gathered the best minds she could find, all willing to take on the impossible task. They were assembled in a high-security facility beneath the surface of Earth's moon, a vast, underfunded base with little more than old space exploration technology to begin with. The facility was less a research center and more of a glorified scrapyard, but it was all they had. Ova stood at the head of the table in a cramped, dimly lit briefing room. Engineers, military commanders, and scientists crowded around her, their faces a mix of nervous excitement and disbelief. She could see the doubt in their eyes. Even though they had committed to the mission, some still thought the task was impossible. "We need to start from scratch," Ava said, her voice steady. "We're not just building a warship. We're proving that humanity can stand shoulder to shoulder with the most advanced species in the galaxy. We'll need to use what we have and be ready to improvise at every turn." Dr. Lyra Connor, a brilliant aerospace engineer and one of Earth's top minds, spoke up first. "Captain, even with the best technology Earth has, we're not equipped to build a ship of this magnitude. We're talking about building something that has the firepower and defense capabilities to stand against ships from species that have mastered space warfare for centuries. Not to mention, we'd need advanced AI to handle everything from navigation to tactical analysis." Ava nodded, acknowledging the truth of her words, but she refused to let doubt creep in. "We don't need to match their tech," she said, pacing in front of the room. "We need to outthink them. This is where humanity excels. Adaptability. The alien fleets are powerful, but they think in rigid, predictable patterns. We can break those patterns." "But Captain," Commander Zane Marlowe, a seasoned military strategist, cut in, "we barely have enough resources to build a prototype, let alone a fleet. We're behind in every department: energy weapons, shields, propulsion. We're going to have to reverse engineer alien tech just to stand a chance. We'll be in over our heads." Ava's gaze hardened. "Then we start by making the impossible possible. We don't need their advanced tech. Let's modify what we can, mix it with human ingenuity, and create something new. We'll take everything the aliens know and make it ours. The moment we can fly this ship, we'll show them what humans are capable of. And when we can fight, we'll make them regret ever underestimating us." For the first time in the room, a glimmer of belief flickered in the eyes of the others. Ava's unwavering confidence began to spark something inside them. If she believed it could be done, maybe, just maybe, they could find a way. The first task was to figure out propulsion. Humans had never developed anything remotely close to the advanced drives that powered alien warships, but Ava's team wasn't about to let that stop them. They set their sights on modifying the remnants of a downed alien vessel found in the early years of human exploration. The technology wasn't perfect, but it was a start. It was clunky, outdated, but still a step in the right direction. Every day brought new challenges. Power generation was another major hurdle. The alien ships drew power from energy cores humans couldn't even begin to understand, but Lyra, working closely with the lead physicists, came up with a hybrid solution. A modified version of the human nuclear fusion reactor combined with a prototype alien energy cell. It was volatile, dangerous, and would need constant monitoring. But it would work, and that was enough. Every part of the warship would be a battle in itself. Ava knew it wasn't going to be easy. Every moment of progress would be hard-earned, each success fought for with blood, sweat, and hours of grueling labor. But one thing was certain: humanity was going to build a warship, and they weren't going to stop until it was ready. As the days turned into weeks, the project slowly began to take shape. The hull of the Resolve began to emerge from the workshops, a sleek and imposing structure, blending human engineering with alien tech. It wasn't perfect, yet, but it was alive with possibility. Ava stood before the vessel, the cold steel of the frame gleaming under the harsh lights of the construction bay. And for the first time since the summit, she smiled. The impossible was within reach. Days turned into weeks, and the construction of the Resolve slowly gained traction. Despite the countless setbacks, the team's resolve remained unshaken. With every challenge, Humanity's ingenuity rose to the occasion, but even as they made progress, the doubts about whether they could truly finish the ship and make it battle-ready continued to weigh heavily on Ava's mind. Standing before the latest mock-up of the warship, Ava couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at what they had accomplished so far. The Resolve was an oddity, a mix of human designs and alien technology stitched together by sheer willpower. While the overall shape of the ship was familiar, sleek, aerodynamic, and deadly, there was something distinct about it. It didn't look like any warship the galaxy had ever seen, and that was exactly what they needed. The ship's exterior was reinforced with a new composite material, derived from a blend of Earth's best alloys and modified alien shielding technology. At first, the alien metal had seemed far too fragile for the kinds of blows warships endured, but Dr. Lyra Connor had figured out how to integrate it with Earth's strongest alloys, creating a durable but flexible composite that could absorb more damage without cracking. It wasn't perfect, but it was a vast improvement on anything humanity had ever attempted before. Inside, the ship's design was minimalist but efficient. The Resolve was meant to be both an offensive powerhouse and a durable defensive vessel. Its weapons systems, based on both human and alien designs, were integrated into a single modular platform. The concept was simple: interchangeable weapon pods. This way, if one type of weapon was ineffective in combat, the crew could swap it out for another mid-battle, offering unparalleled flexibility. Ava had spent sleepless nights poring over the ship's internal schematics with her crew, trying to find ways to streamline its operations. A warship wasn't just a ship, it was an entire city of life support systems, power grids, and weapon systems. To have a fighting chance, the Resolve needed to be fully automated, with an AI system that could manage the chaos of space combat. They couldn't afford the lag time it took for human decision-making to kick in during high-stakes battles. The AI, codenamed Orion, was a hybrid system that blended Earth's best computer programming with an alien framework found in a derelict vessel years earlier. It was capable of processing thousands of calculations per second, predicting enemy movements, and analyzing battlefield conditions in real time. But integrating such a sophisticated AI wasn't without its risks. They had no way of fully understanding its alien components, and the hybrid nature of Orion left them with the unsettling possibility of malfunction, or worse, rebellion. Ava had placed her trust in Orion's capabilities, but part of her couldn't shake the worry that it might be too advanced for their control. Yet, despite the uncertainty, Orion had already shown its potential. In early tests, it managed to run simulations that had taken their human analysts days to complete in mere hours. And during one late-night practice maneuver, it predicted an incoming attack with pinpoint accuracy, directing the ship's evasive maneuvers with a precision that far outstripped human abilities. But even the best AI couldn't overcome the sheer limitations they faced with power. The ship's engine system, modified from a crashed alien warship, had great potential, but it wasn't perfect. It could propel the Resolve faster than any human ship, but it wasn't stable. The team had worked out a patchwork solution, a hybrid propulsion system that mixed human nuclear fusion technology with alien drive cores. But it wasn't reliable enough to give them a true edge in battle. Still, they had no choice but to press forward. Ava walked through the vast hangar bay, the hum of machinery all around her. She stood before the Resolve, now half-built but unmistakably formidable. There was still so much left to do: systems to test, weaponry to fine-tune, and more than a few alien components to modify. The ship wasn't ready, not yet, but they were close. As she surveyed the ship, she knew that this was it. The moment of truth was approaching. Earth was no longer a joke in the eyes of the galaxy. They had taken the first step toward showing the universe that humanity would not go quietly into the dark, that they could innovate, adapt, and fight back. Ava turned to face her team, her voice carrying the weight of everything they'd worked for. "We're not finished yet, but we're getting close. Keep pushing. We're going to finish this ship. And when we do, The galaxy will know what it means to underestimate humanity. The day the Resolve was ready for its first test flight, the atmosphere on Earth's moon base was electric. After months of grueling work, the ship that had started as little more than a dream was about to take to the skies. There was a mixture of nervous energy and excitement in the air. No one knew if this would be a success or if they were about to witness the destruction of their work in an instant. But Ava wasn't worried. Not yet. She stood in the command center, eyes fixed on the massive display screens. Every member of the crew was monitoring something. Navigational systems, propulsion, power levels, life support. They had done everything they could to ensure this test would go smoothly, but there were always variables they couldn't account for. The alien tech they had integrated was still largely untested, and the ship's systems were still in the process of calibration. "Captain, all systems are go." Lyra Connor's voice came through, crackling over the comms. "We're ready for launch." Ava nodded, keeping her composure. "Begin the countdown," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts running through her mind. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Every second that ticked down felt like an eternity. This wasn't just about the ship. It was about Earth's place in the galaxy, about proving humanity's worth when everyone had doubted them. If they failed, they might as well have never tried. At the 1-second mark, Ava's heart raced. The Resolve began to rumble as its engines powered up, their modified propulsion systems coming to life with a deafening roar. The air crackled with tension. The ship began to lift off the ground, slowly at first, but then with increasing speed as the thrust pushed it higher into the sky. For a moment, Ava thought she might breathe a sigh of relief, until an alarm blared across the command center. "Warning, propulsion system instability detected," shouted Zane Marlowe, the military strategist. He immediately began frantically typing commands into his console, trying to stabilize the system. "We're losing power to the rear engines." The Resolve shuddered violently, sending Ava's stomach into her throat. The ship wavered midair, unsteady, as though it might plummet back to the surface at any moment. Her team was already scrambling to fix the issue, but the situation felt out of control. They had anticipated problems, but this was different. They couldn't afford to lose the ship now. "Lyra, reroute auxiliary power to the rear engines," Ava barked, her voice sharp with urgency. "I'm on it," Lyra replied, her fingers flying across the console. For what felt like an eternity, the Resolve hovered, teetering on the edge of disaster. The hum of the engines grew erratic as the team fought to bring the ship back under control. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was mere seconds, the auxiliary power kicked in, stabilizing the ship. The shuddering stopped. Slowly, cautiously, the Resolve began to climb once more, this time with steady control. The engines, though imperfect, were holding up. Ava let out the breath she had been holding, but she didn't allow herself to relax completely. Not yet. "Stabilizing." Lyra's voice broke through. "We've got full power." Ava nodded, her expression hard. "Good. Let's push it further." The ship ascended through Earth's atmosphere, the tension in the control room palpable. Ava's eyes were glued to the readouts as the Resolve pushed beyond the familiar confines of the moon base and into the vast emptiness of space. This was only a test flight, but the stakes were already sky-high. The rest of the galaxy was watching, even if they didn't know it yet. Once the ship was in orbit, Ava gave the signal. "Initiate battle simulation." The crew fell silent, each of them well aware of what that meant. This wasn't just about a smooth flight. It was about seeing if the ship could handle the kind of combat they would face in the war to come. Almost immediately, Orion, a hybrid AI, took over. The ship's systems shifted into high alert, running through hundreds of combat scenarios. It simulated incoming fire, evasive maneuvers, and weapons engagement. The Resolve swerved and dodged through space at lightning speed, performing twists and turns that would have been impossible for human pilots to execute manually. But even as the Resolve demonstrated its raw power, Something was wrong. "Captain," Zane's voice echoed in alarm. "The simulation is triggering an attack pattern we didn't program. It's not us. There's something out there." Ava's heart sank as a red warning flashed across the screen. She instinctively turned to Lyra. "Are we being targeted?" Lyra stared at the data, her face growing pale. "It's not a simulation. We're being hailed by a hostile fleet." The screens flickered and a transmission came through, a garbled alien message, followed by an image of an alien warship. Ava's stomach twisted. The battle had already begun, and their first test flight might have just turned into humanity's first real battle. Ava's heart raced as the alien warship flickered across the screens. The hostile fleet had caught them by surprise, something they weren't prepared for. Not yet. She couldn't afford to panic. The Resolve had been built for moments like this, but it wasn't ready for full-scale combat. Not yet. "Lyra, adjust the shields to maximum power," Ava barked. She turned to Zane. "Get Orion running full battle mode. Now." The crew scrambled into action. Lyra's fingers danced across her console, rerouting energy to the ship's defensive shields. The Resolve's hull shimmered with a faint blue light, an energy field surrounding it, offering some protection. But Ava knew it wouldn't hold long against an actual assault. The alien ships, whatever species they belonged to, were no pushovers. The alien ship on the screen loomed closer. It was massive, far larger than the Resolve, with sleek, angular surfaces and weapons emplacements bristling across its hull. Its designs were unmistakably alien, with sharp edges and geometric patterns that made it look like something out of a nightmare. Ava's gut twisted. This wasn't just any test. This was real. If they failed now, everything they'd worked for would be lost. "Orion, begin evasive maneuvers," Ava ordered, her voice steady. The AI instantly took over the ship's flight systems, inputting thousands of calculations per second. The Resolve jerked as it suddenly shifted, veering to the left with a speed that made Ava's stomach drop. The ship streaked through space, twisting and turning, avoiding the enemy ship's targeting reticule. But the alien ship was relentless, tracking their movements with unnerving precision. Zane's voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, we're in their sights. I'm activating the weapons systems, but we need to get closer to fire." Ava's eyes were glued to the readouts, counting the seconds. The alien ship's massive weapon platforms were beginning to power up, charging for a devastating shot. She could feel the heat of the moment in her chest. This was it. They had one chance to prove the Resolve could survive. And maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tables. "Activate pulse cannons," Ava commanded, her voice sharp. "Target the enemy's engines." The ship's massive pulse cannons, borrowed from the wreckage of the alien vessel, powered up, sending a burst of energy out toward the enemy ship. The blast connected with the enemy's rear engines, sending shockwaves through space. For a brief moment, Ava felt a surge of triumph. But it wasn't enough. The alien ship didn't falter. It retaliated almost immediately, firing a devastating beam of energy from its front cannon. The blast struck the Resolve's shields, sending a massive shockwave through the hull. The entire ship shuddered violently as the energy blast sent a cascade of warning alarms throughout the command center. "Shields at 40%. Lyra shouted, her voice tinged with fear. "We're losing power to the front." Ava gritted her teeth. They couldn't sustain another hit like that. The Resolve's shields were holding, barely, but they needed to get out of the line of fire. There was only one option left. "Orion, get us to maximum speed," Ava said, her voice laced with urgency. "Push the engines. We need to outrun them." The ship surged forward, engines roaring to life as Orion recalculated their course with deadly precision. The alien ship followed, but the Resolve was faster. For a few moments, it seemed like they might escape, but Ava knew that time was against them. They couldn't outrun their pursuers forever. "Incoming," Zane shouted, pointing at his screen. The alien ship had launched smaller fighter craft, drones that detached from the larger vessel and came charging toward them, faster and more agile than the Resolve itself. "Lyra, we need anti-fighter systems up now," Ava ordered. "We don't have time to reprogram the systems for that," Lyra replied, her voice strained. The drones were closing in fast, too fast. Ava's mind raced as the drones closed in on the Resolve. They couldn't afford to take them out one by one. She needed something that would create a wall of defense, a single attack that could disable the swarm. "Activate all available point defense lasers," Ava said, thinking fast. "We'll fry their targeting systems before they get too close." Lyra's hands flew across the console, and a series of bright blue lasers shot out from the Resolve's hull, slicing through the swarm of incoming fighters. One by one, they were obliterated in flashes of light, but there were too many. The drones kept coming. In the midst of the chaos, Orion detected a weakness in the alien ship's strategy. It analyzed the enemy's attack patterns and came up with a countermeasure. "Captain," Orion's voice cut through the chaos, "I suggest we execute a decoy maneuver, drawing the drones into a kill zone." Without hesitation, Ava gave the command, and the Resolve performed an evasive move that tricked the pursuing fighters into a concentrated formation. Then they unleashed another pulse shot. The lasers slammed into the drones in rapid succession, shattering them in a blaze of light. Ava exhaled. The ship was still standing, but they were far from safe. The battle raged on, but the Resolve was holding its ground. The alien drones had been wiped out, but the primary threat, the massive warship that loomed like a predator in space, remained. Ava's knuckles were white against the console as she gripped it, heart pounding in her chest. Their first real test had turned into a life-or-death struggle, and they were far from out of danger. "Shields are at 30% and dropping," Lyra shouted over the comms, her voice strained. "If we take another hit like that, we're finished." Ava could feel the ship shuddering with every blast that struck the shields. The Resolve was a marvel of human ingenuity, but it was still just a prototype. A ship built in a rushed frenzy with alien tech they barely understood. It wasn't invincible. "Orion, any ideas?" Ava asked, her voice tight with pressure. "Analysis complete," Orion responded in its calm, synthetic tone. "The enemy warship's rear engines are vulnerable. The energy surge from your pulse cannons earlier caused minor damage to their propulsion system. A focused strike at their rear will cause significant destabilization. However, we need to close the distance before we can strike." Ava's mind raced. They didn't have the luxury of time. The alien ship was closing in again, preparing to launch another barrage of weapons. Their shields were weakening, and if they didn't act now, they'd be reduced to space debris. "We can't outrun them any longer," Ava muttered, her decision clear. "Zane, get ready for evasive maneuvers. Lyra, reroute power to the rear-facing cannons. We're going to push them into a corner." She turned to the screen, watching the massive warship grow closer, its sleek and deadly form dwarfing the Resolve. Every blast of energy from the enemy was a reminder that they were still outclassed, but they were not without hope. The human spirit, ingenuity, adaptability, and sheer determination was their secret weapon. It was time to put it to the test. "Orion, calculate the optimal trajectory for the rear attack," Ava commanded. "Lyra, power up the rear-facing pulse cannons." "I'm on it," Lyra replied, working quickly, fingers flying across the control panel. The seconds dragged by like hours, and Ava could feel the tension building. The alien warship was within striking distance now, and the Resolve was in the perfect position for their surprise attack. But the problem was the timing. It had to be flawless. "Zane, give me a sharp turn to port in 5, 4, 3, 2, now," Ava called, her voice sharp with command. Zane's hands flew over the controls, pushing the Resolve into a sudden roll that sent the ship veering sharply to the left. The move caught the alien warship off guard, causing it to momentarily lose lock on the human vessel. The alien ship's guns fired, but the blast missed. In that instant, Lyra fired the rear-facing pulse cannons. The shots slammed into the alien warship's propulsion systems with brutal accuracy. The force of the blast was enough to shake the Resolve, but it had the desired effect. The alien warship's engines faltered, smoke billowing from the rear as the ship lurched, its momentum thrown off course. The screen lit up with a notification. Enemy warship's propulsion system critically damaged. Yes, Ava exhaled, a mixture of relief and exhilaration flooding through her. Now, let's finish this. Before the alien ship could recover, Orion activated the ship's secondary weapon system, a harpoon-like magnetic tether designed to immobilize enemy ships. It was a risky move. They didn't have a lot of control over it, and if they failed, they'd be vulnerable. But it was their only shot. The tether shot out from the Resolve with surgical precision, locking onto the weakened alien ship's hull. Ava's heart pounded as the magnetic field engaged, drawing the enemy ship closer. It was now within range. Lyra, full power to the pulse cannons. This is our final chance, Ava shouted. Lyra's fingers were a blur as she reconfigured the ship's systems. The pulse cannons roared to life once more, this time firing at point-blank range. A concentrated beam of energy surged into the alien ship's damaged engines, followed by another round of pulses directly into its hull. The alien warship trembled violently, its systems crackling with explosions, but it did not go down. Not yet. "Captain, it's not over," Zane warned, his voice grim. "The enemy ship is attempting to power up its secondary weapons." Ava had no intention of giving them the chance. The Resolve had sustained heavy damage, but it was still moving. They had one more trick up their sleeve. "Orion, engage full tactical override," Ava commanded. "I want every last ounce of energy poured into the pulse cannon. No more holding back." The ship's engines whined in protest as the systems were pushed to their limits, but Orion complied. The Resolve surged forward. The final pulse cannon charged to maximum. "Fire," Ava said, her voice cold with determination. The cannon fired in one concentrated, blinding burst, slamming into the alien warship's core. There was a moment of eerie silence, and then the entire ship exploded in a massive flash of light, debris scattering across space. The enemy was defeated. For a long moment, Ava and her crew sat in stunned silence, the enormity of what had just happened sinking in. They had won. Against all odds, humanity had prevailed in its first real battle. But Ava knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy wouldn't wait for them to catch their breath. The Resolve had proven it could fight, but there was much more ahead. "Good work, everyone," Ava said, her voice steady but laced with resolve. "But this is just the start. We got a long road ahead." The explosion of the enemy warship still lingered in Ava's mind as the Resolve drifted in space. The stars around them, once a backdrop to their struggle, now felt eerily silent. The battlefield had fallen still, save for the dissonant hum of their own ship's systems coming back online. Ava stood motionless in the command center, staring out at the remnants of the alien vessel. She knew they had won, but the victory felt hollow. There was no time for celebration, no time to breathe. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, and this encounter was just one of many hurdles they would face. "Captain," Zane's voice broke through her thoughts. "I'm picking up an anomaly in the sector. Looks like a distress signal. Weak, but it's coming from an uncharted system nearby. Could be another ship or something worse." Ava turned to him, her brow furrowing. "Could it be another enemy fleet?" "Unlikely," Zane said, adjusting his screens. "The frequency's too random, more like a distress call from a damaged vessel." Ava considered this for a moment. The crew was still shaken from their first engagement, and they had sustained damage during the battle, some of which they had yet to fully assess. But if there was a potential survivor out there, they couldn't ignore it. A part of her didn't want to risk the unknown, but the greater mission called for it. They had to push forward, no matter the odds. "Set a course to the coordinates," she said finally. "Prepare for a scan of the area. If we're going in, we do it cautiously." As the ship shifted into motion, Ava felt a wave of exhaustion settle in. The past few days had blurred together, a series of broken nights, technical malfunctions, and near-death experiences. But despite the weariness, there was a glimmer of something she couldn't quite put into words. The resolve was more than a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's refusal to back down, to give up in the face of insurmountable odds. "Captain, the signal is growing stronger," Lyra's voice echoed over the comms. "We're approaching the source." Ava nodded. The unease creeping up her spine only intensified. Something about the distress signal felt off, like a trap carefully laid in the vast emptiness of space. "Keep your eyes peeled," Ava ordered. "I don't trust this." The resolve slipped through the black void toward the coordinates, a cold feeling spreading across the crew. The tension was palpable, with everyone wondering what awaited them. Soon enough, they came upon the wreckage. It wasn't just one ship, it was a graveyard. Wrecked hulls floated aimlessly in space, their once pristine surfaces scorched and torn apart. It was clear now that this wasn't a distress signal from a lone survivor. It was a warning. Ava's stomach twisted. What in God's name happened here? "Looks like a battle," Zane replied, zooming in on one of the ships. "But these aren't our enemies. I've never seen anything like these markings before." A series of strange symbols adorned the hulls of the scattered ships. They were similar to the ones on the alien warship they had just destroyed, but more complex, intricate. Ava's mind raced. Had they stumbled upon another alien species, one that was at war with the ones they had just faced? Or perhaps the wreckage was a result of internal conflict, factions at war within the same race. "Orion, run a full analysis of the wreckage. I want to know what happened here," Ava ordered. The ship's AI complied, immediately accessing the fragmented data from nearby ships. A few moments later, Orion's voice broke the uneasy silence. "Captain, I've analyzed the data. This is an ancient battle, an ongoing conflict between two alien factions. The wreckage you're witnessing is the aftermath of a clash between two technologically advanced civilizations, both of which seem to have advanced weapon systems similar to what we encountered." Ava felt a sinking feeling in her chest. This was bad. If they were caught between two hostile alien factions, the Resolve and its crew might not stand a chance. "How long has this conflict been going on?" Ava asked, trying to stay calm. "Based on the decay of the wreckage, it appears this battle has been raging for decades," Orion responded. "The first wave of ships was damaged and scattered by a powerful energy weapon, and the wreckage suggests the losing side was hunted down by the victors." The realization hit Ava like a ton of bricks. They weren't just in the midst of an alien war. They had stumbled into the middle of something much bigger than they could have anticipated. "Get us out of here, Zane," Ava said, her voice cold. "Now." But as she turned to face the crew, her thoughts raced. There was more to this than just a random encounter. This war, this conflict, could reshape everything they had been working toward. The future of humanity's role in the galaxy hung in the balance, and Ava knew one thing for sure: their survival depended on how quickly they could adapt to the threats ahead. Ava couldn't shake the weight of the discovery. The wreckage of alien ships, the strange symbols, the centuries-old conflict. It all pointed to something far greater than they had bargained for. They had hoped to be the pioneers of humanity's place in the galaxy, but it was beginning to look like they had stumbled into the middle of an ancient war between factions far beyond their understanding. As the Resolve pulled away from the wreckage, the silence in the command center was deafening. The crew knew they were in uncharted waters. They hadn't expected this. They weren't prepared for it. Ava's mind was racing, but she knew they had no choice but to keep moving forward. If they lingered too long, they'd become part of the wreckage themselves. "Captain," Lyra spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. "What do we do now?" Ava ran her hand over her face, feeling the exhaustion creep in. The Resolve had survived its first battle, But this was a whole new ballgame. The stakes were higher than ever, and the battlefield was larger, more complex than anything they had ever anticipated. "I'm not sure," Ava admitted, pacing back and forth. "But we can't afford to ignore this. Whatever happened here, it's part of something bigger. If we just turn around now, we'll be condemning ourselves to irrelevance." Zane, who had been studying the wreckage on his console, finally spoke up. "Captain, there's more. I've been running a scan on the debris fields, and I'm picking up unusual energy signatures. They're faint, but they're coming from the edge of the system." Ava's pulse quickened. "Unusual how?" "The energy's not like anything I've seen before. It's almost like it's hidden." "And the source? It's moving," Zane replied, his fingers typing rapidly. "It could be another ship, maybe one of the factions, or something entirely new. Whatever it is, it's trying to avoid detection." Ava glanced at the rest of the crew, sensing the same unease in their expressions. "Prepare for full stealth mode," she ordered. "We're going to find out what's out there." They had no idea what they were heading into, but Ava knew they had to take the chance. If they could get close enough to learn more about the two alien factions fighting here, it might be their only advantage in the long run. If they were going to survive in this galaxy, they needed allies, information. And the only way to get that was to venture deeper into the unknown. As the Resolve powered down its non-essential systems and entered stealth mode, the ship's hum softened to a near silence. The crew moved carefully, focusing on their roles, knowing that the next steps would determine their survival. The feeling of being watched, of being hunted, was thick in the air. They couldn't afford to make any noise. Any wrong move, and they'd be caught in the crossfire. The hours dragged on as the Resolve inched closer to the energy signatures. The atmosphere on board was tense, every crew member feeling the weight of the unknown pressing on them. Ava kept her gaze fixed on the star streaks ahead, trying to ignore the knot in her stomach. "Captain, we're close," Lyra said, her voice steady but edged with nervousness. "We're within range of the energy source." Ava nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Ready weapons, but don't engage unless I give the order. We don't know what we're dealing with." The ship's pulse cannons hummed softly, powered up but dormant, waiting for Eva's command. The energy source finally revealed itself, a large, cloaked ship, hidden in plain sight, its surface a mix of dark, iridescent metal that blended into the backdrop of space. It was massive, larger than the Resolve, with an alien design far more advanced than anything they had encountered. "This is it," Ava murmured. "Whoever's inside that ship, they know how to stay hidden." Suddenly, a burst of energy shot out from the cloaked ship, followed by a communication signal, a cryptic message, the language indecipherable. It sounded almost like a warning, but Ava couldn't be sure. The moment was critical. "Orion," Ava said, "translate that message." "I'm attempting to decode the signal," Orion replied, its calm tone a stark contrast to the tension in the room. "It appears to be a complex encryption, but I'll have it shortly." Seconds felt like minutes as the crew waited, knowing that any wrong move could trigger another battle, or worse, a confrontation with a force they couldn't defeat. "Got it," Orion said finally. "The message is partially decoded. It reads, 'Leave now or face extinction.'" Ava's heart skipped a beat. The threat was real. Whoever was behind this ship wasn't just a random alien. They were someone to fear. "This is not just a warning. It's a declaration," Zane said, his voice tight. "They don't want us here. And they have the power to make sure we don't stay." Ava stood still for a moment, considering their options. They could turn tail and leave, but that would only prove that they were weak, vulnerable. No, they had come too far to back down now. "We don't have the luxury of retreating anymore," Ava said, her voice steady with resolve. "Prepare for negotiations. We're going to find out who's behind this ship and why they're trying to keep us away."